Hi, I'm Steve Sorensen with Vine and Branch's Equipping for Discipleship. In this video, we'll be looking at some of the internal evidence for the reliability of the Bible. But before we do, let's review 3 points of evidence for the external reliability of the Bible. Point number 1, if God is personal, meaning God is interactive with His creation, then it stands to reason that God would want to communicate with His creation, and that communication would inevitably end up in written form. Point number 2, the quantity and quality of ancient biblical manuscripts is unparalleled among all ancient literature. And point number 3, there are over 100,000 archaeological discoveries that support many of the claims of Scripture, and not one archaeological discovery has ever refuted a claim of Scripture. Let's look at 3 points for the internal evidence of the reliability of the Bible. There'll be the harmony of Scripture, fulfilled prophecy, and the authenticity or the honesty of Scripture. The harmony of Scripture. The Bible is written over a period of about 1,400 years on 3 different continents in 3 different languages by around 40 different authors. It was written under a wide variety of circumstances, such as the Exodus from Egypt, to being established as a nation, to being conquered as a nation, set free, and conquered again, time and time again. It was written during times of incredible poverty as well as incredible abundance. Sometimes it was written under periods of corrupt leaders, and sometimes written under very good leaders, and sometimes even these very good leaders did some corrupt things. Despite this vast array of circumstances, the Bible is a continuous narrative from beginning to end of God's plan, God's purpose, God's love, God's justice, and God's redemption, and never once does Scripture stray from any of these themes. The Bible is copied and written over a period of about 20 centuries to what we have today. And during this time, any theological facts or other facts or additions or omissions that may have crept in over time have been accounted for, and they are not considered in the context of Scripture. Prophecy. The Bible is replete with fulfilled prophecies. For the nation of Israel, there are prophecies about it being established as a nation, about it being captured and conquered and taken into exile, of being set free, and then of being conquered time and time again. There's also prophecies about the building of the temple, the destruction of the temple, the rebuilding of the temple. And oftentimes, and sometimes in these prophecies regarding Israel being conquered and destroyed and the rebuilding of the temple, specific names of either the nations or the rulers of these nations or the individuals involved are actually mentioned. Jesus fulfilled around 300 prophecies. Some of them are vague, but many of them are very clear, such as Jesus being called God, of Him being betrayed for 30 pieces of silver, of His triumphant entry riding into town on a donkey, of Him being crucified, of Him being buried in a borrowed tomb, and of Him being resurrected. If Jesus were to fulfill just 8 of these 300 prophecies, the odds of Him doing so are 1 in 10 to the 28th power. That's 10 with 28 zeros behind it. The authenticity or honesty of Scripture. The writers of Scripture did not depict themselves or other characters of Scripture in grandiose or lofty terms. Rather, they often depicted them in embarrassing or unflattering ways. Basically, they let their dirty laundry be all out there for all to see, Old Testament and New Testament. In the New Testament, some of the characters of the disciples of Christ who were in the presence of Christ actually said and did some very silly, impulsive, and foolish things. And none of that is hidden from the reader. This all speaks to the authenticity or the honesty of Scripture. Those 3 points again are the harmony of Scripture, fulfilled prophecy, and the authenticity or honesty of Scripture. In the next video, we will look at some of the objections by critics to the reliability of the Bible and how do we respond to them. We'll see you next time.